So what we're going to do now is I'm going to start with a Spangenhelm. So I've got a request that I show from beginning to end on how to do a Spangenhelm. So I've taken dimensions of my head to start with, because this is just going to be modeled after mine. What I've noticed with heads though is most heads tend to be very similarly sized. So yeah, the dimensions are similar. There's obviously variations between people, but a lot of that you can make up with a bit of padding. Not to say that, you know, it's not tailor-made for you. It's best to have something tailor-made to fit your size, but that's what I've noticed with helmets. I've made a few. So if you're looking at these drawings here, so these are just the dimensions I've quickly put together. So first you want the circumference of your head. That will be sort of, you know, top of the ear across your brow of your eyebrows level, and then full all the way around. So you want that full circumference. Then you're going to have the dimension from over the top of your head from ear to ear, which mine will be 40 centimeters. Then from the front of your head to the back, which is 45 centimeters. So there you can already see that the head's obviously it's not round, it's got an oval shape to it. So that's very important to consider. I've seen people make it where they make it round and it just doesn't fit. And you've got a very tight fit on the front and back, but then it's very loose on the sides. Then I've used special calipers. I'll show you these calipers. So I've used these calipers. These I get the thickness, so thickness from ear to ear and from front to back. Right there again, you can see that it's an oval shape. So this helmet's quite simple. I suggest if you're going to start off, this is a very simple helmet to make. You'll see how I go through it, and I'll see about the patterns. This is a very straightforward pattern. You'll only pretty much need one actual pattern piece for it, and those are for the panels on the side. Now the helmet I'm going to make now is not, I wouldn't say very historical. There's a bit of variations. This just seems to be the common one people like to wear. It's the 4-panel Spangenhelm with a nasal guard. So I'm going to be doing that and starting off. So I've got here a nice piece of 1.2mm mild steel that I'm using. This has actually been in my inventory for quite a while. 1.2mm mild steel is great for, you know, if you want to do sort of more for show pieces, especially with your helmet. For the rest of your armor, 1.2 I find against steel swords works well. It dents very little, even with hard blows with a steel sword, with a two-handed sword. So for the rest of the body is fine. For the head you want a bit of weight, but this is going to be a bit light for the helmet. Maybe more historically accurate because their helmets were quite thin. Because obviously, you know, armor back then wasn't designed really to, you know, just you stand there and take a beating. It was there for that odd blow that you missed, or that guy behind you tried to stab you in the back of the head. So this is the steel I'm going to be using for this. This is the majority of steel that you use. It's the standard stock item I have in my shop, which is the 1.2mm mild steel. Right, so now carrying on, what I can say though for your steel, when you get it in, I usually get my steel in, I cut it up in half so it's easier to move. And secondly, very importantly, I spray oil over it. So you can use, I use WD-40 or Q20 or whatever's, you know, you've got around, but coat it in the oil. And I suggest a good synthetic lubricant. Natural stuff tends to go rancid, so it forms like a plastic layer. But definitely oil it on both sides, rub it in, and store it even if you're going to use it straight away. Reason for that, or you can see from here, this is a sheet. You can still see how shiny it is. There's no rust on it, even though this piece of steel is over a year old. Right. So following that, let's go on to drawing out the patterns we're going to need and start cutting out. Okay. So starting off, we're going to make the brim of the helmet. So with this brim, I'm going to go for about 3.5 centimeters thick. Right, and I'm going to need it, like I measured here, 68 centimeters. It's going to be 68, always cut bigger. So I'm going to make it 70, round it off at 70. Okay, so there I've got the brim cut out. While I'm at this, because the three main beginning pieces, the brim and the structure of it, is going to be just straight lengths of steel. Next I'm going to cut out is the bands that go over it. Now these will be slightly thinner. I'm going to go with 3 centimeters on those. Right, so the one here, I need it to be 40 centimeters. And then, because I run out of space there, I'm going to need a 45 centimeter piece. Okay, so now I'm going to go on to cutting it out. I'm not going to bore you with the cutting out. I'm sure you've seen me cut out stuff enough. Yeah, once I cut it out, then we'll carry on from there. Right, so carrying on, I've got the 3 pieces that are cut out now, and I've sanded off the edges to get rid of the burr. So now there's no burr on them. So now there's your 3 parts for the main construction of the helmet. One thing I realized, this is also a nice project to work with if you don't have anything any heat. This helmet design like this, you don't need any heat. You don't need a forge for it. All of this you can do cold. And so yeah, so carrying on, let me just actually show you a few tools that you need, because this is actually quite a simple one that I would suggest. The only 2 hammers you can, not even. This one you might definitely use for a bit of the shaping. You can use this if you've got maybe a bit of a rounded head face on it. That shouldn't be a problem. That will help with the dishing of the corner pieces. So you can see it's just got a bit of a round head to it. Normal one, just grind off the sides to make a nice rounded face to it. And then obviously this is the best option with one rounded face. That will help tremendously with the dishing. This is my primary forging hammer that I use. It works very well, 2-pound hammer. Right, so those are the two hammers that you use. Otherwise you can get by with just this one. And then so that's pretty much just to get the forming bright. And you don't even need an anvil for this. You can use a wooden stump or so. And then the rivets that you will be using is just, you can use pop rivets. I'm sure everyone knows what pop rivets are. Or the other option would be, I always use solid rivets. And then you would need something like this to pin the rivets. Otherwise, you can use pop rivets. They just don't look so great, but you can use them if you want to give this a shot. So those are the 2 hammers that you'll be needing. And yeah, so let's carry on. I don't know if here we go. Here's some examples of rivets. So these are the solid rivets I use. Right. So these are the solid rivets. So normal rivet that that you can think of. So yeah, these are a bit long, so I cut them to the length I need, and then you pin them. So you can see, let's see, there we go. So this is a round head rivet. You get different sizes. I suggest sticking to the round head. You get flat heads, you get oval heads, or mushroom heads. Stick to the round head ones. They will work the best for all of them, and make sure you get the just in the plain steel ones, and not galvanized or any nonsense like that. You get stainless steel ones, you can go that way, but I don't know how well they'll peen over. Get aluminium ones, I don't know, stay away from that. And you get brass ones, they're very expensive, so you can use that if you want a bit of decorative parts to it. You can use them. They are just expensive. They actually peen very nicely. And you get copper ones. Depends on where you can get hold of this stuff. You can also make your own. I don't make my own yet. I've tried to. It's just a little bit fidgety at the moment, but I will eventually probably start making my own rivets, make decorative rivets. So yeah, let's go over to doing the rough forming for this. Okay. Right. So I'm going to now do the bending of these bands. I'm going to be doing it over my 100 kilogram or 200 pound Pt I anvil. So you can use a piece of wood, a round piece of wood, a wooden stump for doing this forming. Again, so none of it will be hot. So the idea would be just to sort of roughly form it around the horn of this anvil. Okay, and what you'll see is what I'm doing is I'm not just putting it, bending it over. I'm applying pressure and rolling it around the edge. And I'll explain to you now why I do that. Okay, so now we've got a rough shape in there. Okay, so ideally you want that back opening there to be at the back of the head. That's just how it will work out the best. Now the reason for dragging it over instead of just bending is now when you just bend it over, you'll find you'll get kinks in the steel. It's not perfectly smooth. However, if you drag it across, you're kind of using like a roller bender. It's not as nice. If you have a roller bender, that'll be great. So you can just, you know, wind it in and it'll roll it out nicely. I don't. So that's fine. That you can do like that. Same thing over wood. It just stops giving you those creases there. So you just roll it over. You'll see there's no creases in this one. But then as soon as you bend it, what happens, you put pressure on the one side, especially because you're bending it at a less acute angle than the anvil is round. So that will obviously then give you your creases in the steel. So this way you don't get creases. Right. Okay, so there it's coming along quite nicely. Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and do the same thing with the other pieces. So again, okay, got a nice bend there. The final bending you'll refine later on once you start doing fitting these parts together. Right, so there we go. Okay, on to the next step.